Welcome to the Rise to Intimacy podcast. I'm your host, Valerie McDonald, and for over a decade, I've worked as a sex and couples therapist because intimacy used to feel really overwhelming for me. I felt a lot of pressure to perform, I was disconnected from my body, and I often felt like desire was out of reach for me. But through my own trauma work, I stopped checking out of my body and started feeling connected to it again. I learned what it's like to experience intimacy without fear, without shutting down, and without numbing out. Now I'm on a mission to help you do the same thing. This podcast exists because trauma doesn't get the last word. You can learn how to calm your body, change the story you've been carrying, and rebuild real connection. First with yourself and then with the people you love. Let's begin. When couples come and see me and they're feeling disconnected or distant from each other, they often also ask me, how do I know what a healthy relationship looks like, and how do I create one? But healthy relationships aren't conflict-free. In fact, having conflict in your relationship isn't even an indicator that things are wrong. Instead, it's mostly about how you navigate that conflict and then resolve it. And that can absolutely be a reflection of the health of your relationship. Healthy relationships require consistent nurturing on both an emotional and a physically intimate level. Sometimes when the honeymoon phase ends, though, people either ease into a comfortable numbness of predictable routines or ruminate on what went wrong, but they're often very confused on how to change it. This can look like discussions that only center on the kids or your calendars and finances, or realizing that the only time you spend together is sitting across from one another on the couch, falling asleep to the show you're both binge watching. But the honeymoon phase ending isn't just an indication that things are shifting in the relationship. It's actually a chance to ensure that as they shift, you continue to grow alongside your partner instead of in a different direction from them. And research shows that relationship satisfaction changes across the years. Some couples start high, some decline, and some stay stable. So what are the ingredients that make up long-term healthy relationships? The first quality is emotional safety and a secure connection. So research repeatedly highlights that perceived partner responsiveness, which means feeling understood or validated and cared for, is a major driver of relationship quality, especially under stress. What does this look like in therapy with some couples I work with? Well, a couple who is disconnected might not be going on dates anymore, or the time they're spending together is mostly with running the household and managing their kids' schedules. Also, bids for connection are being ignored or dismissed. Sex may have stopped, and important conversations begin but don't lead to resolution, and unfortunately often end in resentment due to each person not feeling seen or heard. Contrast that with a couple who comes in and does some work, and then they end up very connected. What are they doing? They're consistently practicing using communication frameworks that help them stay calm and connected during tough conversations. They're also prioritizing time for quality dates without distractions and where they talk about other things besides the kids and work. They're genuinely interested in their partner's different perspectives when they have disagreements, and they invite their partner to share that openly with them instead of immediately turning inward and going into a place of shame or I need to do something to help myself or my partner feel better. So in real life, things you can do is provide validation before you go into problem-solving mode during conflict. This means before you start trying to fix anything, ensure that you both heard what your partner was saying by acknowledging their perspective or stating back to them what they just shared with you, and also validating that what they feel around it makes sense. In other words, wow, I heard that when I didn't text you last night before we went to bed, and I typically do that every night, you really felt, like you weren't important and you felt like ignored. That makes sense based on what you just shared with me. And so that doesn't mean that we have to agree that we were ignoring them. We might have just been super tired and had a very stressful day. But we can still hear what they're saying and validate what they experienced before we go into problem solving. A lot of times when we can just do that acknowledgement and validation, that solves a lot of the unmet needs that are being expressed, such as, I feel like lonely or abandoned. I'm missing you. I'm having a need that's not being met. And so it provides a lot of emotional safety and connection when we can do that. Also, something that most of us are doing when we get triggered or upset about something in our relationship is we start making assumptions instead of engaging in a mindset of curiosity and actually asking questions first. So this might be, let's just take that same example. If you didn't get the text from your partner before they went to bed. Now, I'm assuming that you're really not at home. You're out with somebody else, or you were prioritizing your work buddies over saying goodnight to me after we hadn't talked all day. Instead of just asking your partner what was going on with them, you could still share, hey, I really missed getting the goodnight text from you last night. I'm wondering, were you having a stressful day, or like what was going on with you? And then you can invite them to share that with you instead of automatically accusing them of something that they might not have meant to do at all. Another important thing when we're talking about emotional safety is not having these comebacks or comments that occur during or after conflict that will automatically send most anybody into a fight or flight. These are things like, threatening to break up every time there's a conflict or threatening to leave. And more abusive behavior would be like threatening to do something with kids or finances or somebody's career. That's absolutely not okay. But anytime we might be making an immediate threat against the relationship, we're not contributing to emotional safety. We need to find phrases to use in those times, if that is a feeling that bubbles up for us, to really convey what we're really feeling, which is like, I'm feeling really upset or angry right now, or I'm feeling very frustrated. I still love you, but I need to take a break. I'm going to go take a walk in the neighborhood with the dog. The next component of a healthy relationship is friendship, fondness, and positive sentiment. So healthy couples are friends who genuinely like each other. Many times couples tell me that they're best friends. They do those things like plan regular dates where they're doing new activities together, not just dinner and drinks every time. They might be engaging in hobbies together. They attend each other's important events with pride and admiration, and they regularly check in with each other about how they're doing internally. So you can think of your relationship as a bank account that you want to regularly deposit things into, like patience, flexibility, compassion, empathy, and of course, love and respect. Your relationship needs a positive emotional bank account to keep running smoothly for years. Research from the Gottman Institute talks about this 5-to-1 principle, meaning that healthy couples have at least 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction, especially during conflict. So that research has shown that balance absolutely contributes to healthy relationships over the lifetime. Something you can do is take 2 minutes and practice some admiration for your partner. Your partner can also do this with you. You can both state one thing you appreciate about each other. You can also make one statement of respect and one statement of desire. This could sound like, hey babe, I really appreciate how much you've been working lately and how dedicated you are to this new job you have. And I would also love for us to pull out our calendars tonight and schedule some quality time in a couple of weeks for just us with no distractions. This is going to work much better than saying something like, "You're constantly coming home late, babe, and all you do is spend time working. We never have time together anymore. I wish you never got that job." So instead of setting the stage for your partner to respond with defensiveness or shutting down or projection, we want to begin the conversation with acknowledgement and appreciation and respect, which helps frame the conversation in a way where your partner can be open and receptive to what you're sharing with them. All right, the next important component of a healthy relationship is a couple who is very competent at repairing conflict. Indicators of healthy conflict are things like starting conversations softly or gently and in a way that your partner can engage with you because you know that their emotional bandwidth isn't completely tapped out. Also, staying on one topic when you're trying to engage in conflict resolution. Also, ensuring that you both take a break if you become flooded or overwhelmed or triggered. This is so very important, and I talk about why this is important in most of the episodes because I believe this is the most crucial element to all healthy relationships. Also, repair attempts that actually end in resolution. So, recent relationship science emphasizes that responsiveness during conflict is tailored, that partners do better when they can identify needs and respond to them. So, what does this look like in therapy sometimes? Well, recently I worked with a couple who said they keep having the same fight, but nothing was ever getting resolved. They felt like they're spinning their wheels and it's happening again and again, and they have no idea how to fix it. So I had them practice their conflict in the session, and I was able to identify their unhealthy communication patterns. This couple was often interrupting each other with defensive comments like, "Well, you do that all the time too, so why don't you change? And then we'll see if it's so easy." But when this happened, the other partner would shut down and become completely quiet. So I taught them the communication framework I like to use to guide all couples for healthier communication. And when we use that, each partner was able to first acknowledge their partner's experience. And that sounds something like, "What I'm hearing you say is that when I left you unread for hours after you shared something vulnerable with me, you felt like I didn't care about you and you felt alone. Did I get that right?" And then after this, you want to provide some validation that your partner's experience makes sense to you. And again, not that you necessarily agree with it, and not that you're taking ownership of your partner's feelings, but that you understand how they feel based on the perspective they just shared with you. So I teach all my couples that you can always acknowledge. This is when people say they feel seen or not seen. And you can always validate, which is when people talk about feeling heard. You can always do the acknowledgement and validation for your partner, even if your perspective is drastically different from theirs. It's okay. But this is common and it happens all the time. But if you think you're going to win the argument once you prove your perspective is the right one, that does nothing but cause more disconnection and frustration and resentment over time. This process is what I call the bridge framework. And throughout the process, couples will also engage in skills to help them remain calm and centered during conflictual conversations. And if they become overwhelmed, they also have a clear plan for taking a pause from the conversation and then returning when both people are calm and ready to do so. After couples can effectively acknowledge and validate their partner's experience, then they can move into problem resolution. And then finally, we can end the conversation with moments of reconnection, like a long hug or cuddling. But healthy couples don't just communicate well, they also learn how to cope together. So this is the next component of a healthy relationship, which is working as a team under stress. There's research that shows that couples are happier when they handle stress together instead of each person dealing with it alone. And a couple I work with does this really well. They both work full-time jobs that are high stress and they have young children. but they set aside 10 minutes at the end of each workday to talk about how they can best support each other for the rest of that evening with the kids and housework and any lingering work responsibilities. Then they also make a plan to divide and conquer first and come back together each night once the kids are in bed so that they have time for connection. They also do this by having a strict bedtime routine for their kids that sets them up to have at least 2 hours of quality time at the end of each night. And during this, they practice both emotional and physical connection. And again, physical connection doesn't have to mean sex. You can connect physically in many ways. So the next important thing for healthy relationships is to engage in growth and novelty after the honeymoon phase ends. So honeymoon energy does often decline, but couples who thrive learn how to create novelty intentionally. So self-expansion research highlights that shared novel or interesting experiences can help protect against boredom and support relationship quality over time. So one of the couples I work with spent a date writing down new activities in the area that neither of them had ever done, and they told me how much fun they had just discussing what they wanted to do. Then they picked one activity to try out each week over the next month. And after that month, they came into therapy talking about new things they had learned about each other, even though they'd been together for over a decade. And they also talked about the admiration they felt for each other, witnessing their partner's excitement or their courage to push outside of their comfort zone. So this couple ended the month feeling both emotionally and physically intimate just by that one exercise of writing down new things they could try together. I encourage you to do the same thing. Maybe write down one new thing you can do each week, and it can be something tiny, like trying out a new coffee spot, or taking a new hiking trail, or talking about something different when you're alone besides the typical thing, or creating a playlist together, or maybe taking a day trip to somewhere neither one of you have been. Healthy relationships also balance we with me. So the we is like your shared values, rituals, and your future dreams and goals as a couple and or family. But the me is how you express your own identity, your autonomy, what your boundaries are, and what other relationships are important to you to continue to nurture. So another couple I work with highly values supporting each other's separate friendships and hobbies because they know that supporting that independence helps their partner feel safe and comfortable with them when they return. They also trust that providing this time for each other to grow independently will help their relationship grow. Because when each person feels fulfilled and grounded in themselves, you're able to show up and be more present and generous and emotionally available as a partner. But the unhealthy version of this is when a partner needs to know every single detail of your life in a way that pushes against boundaries instead of honoring them. In other words, they don't need to check your phone all the time or track your location or message you constant when you're away in order to feel secure. Or if they do, then there's some work that needs to be done around why that insecurity exists, and is it your partner's or is it something that is insecure within the relationship? That kind of hyper monitoring does not improve connection and closeness. It also doesn't help you build trust, even though that's what a lot of people are trying to do. It's often just a sign of anxiety. It could be fear of abandonment. And of course, like I said, a lack of trust. But over time, it will erode the safety and the intimacy in your relationship rather than strengthening it. And the last ingredient of a healthy relationship that we're going to talk about is sexual well-being as an outcome and a practice. So the quality of your sex life often reflects how the relationship is feeling, meaning whether or not you feel connected to your partner. But quality sex doesn't just mean how often you're having sex, because you can often show up for sex that you might not be excited to have, or where you might not be experiencing any type of closeness or connection or pleasure with your partner. Quality sex also means if your needs and your partner's needs are being met. Also, if you know what you desire and you can communicate that clearly and patiently with your partner. And it's one where it's not consistently the same routine, but there's openness and curiosity to explore variety. If you're struggling with having quality sex, please don't wait until you're in a sexless relationship to reach out for help. Couples therapy isn't just for couples who are trying to fix what's already broken. It's for couples who want to maintain the health of their relationship and learn the types of skills and practices that I've been discussing today and in my other episodes. It's so much easier to repair things when you don't already have a mountain of resentment built up over years. And in the meantime, you can start cultivating these qualities in your relationship and nurture them continuously, because they will absolutely lead to a more fulfilling relationship, including improving your sex life. And so these are, again, emotional safety, having more openness, better erotic communication, and just better conflict resolution skills. Great sex long-term often comes from trust, patience, playfulness, clear consent, honest but compassionate feedback, and repairing after ruptures. While every couple comes in to therapy with their own story, I've found that when we combine solid research along with trauma-informed approaches and what actually works in real relationships, that there is a handful of foundational skills that help almost every couple feel safer, more connected, and more resilient. Then I also work on customizing how those skills show up based on what that couple is struggling with, because the way you work on communication and intimacy and trust has to fit your unique relationship. And when I'm teaching these skills, I use the RISE model that I developed based on empirical research and 10 years of working with couples who are experiencing problems in their sex lives. So the RISE model stands for we're going to learn how to regulate or soothe our nervous system when we are experiencing conflict or distress or overwhelming emotions. This will help us be able to have the capacity to engage in conflict resolution that will actually stick and engage with each other in a way that we can feel safe enough to share anything that we feel is necessary or that we just simply want to with our partner. The next part is to illuminate. That means we're going to look underneath the surface level of your conversation. So if you're fighting constantly about the dishes, it's usually just not about the dishes. It's usually something like, when we look underneath, I don't feel supported. I feel like I don't matter to you. I feel all alone. So those messages are actually the messages that we want to tackle, not just fighting about dishes and how to create a schedule or chore list so that we're not feeling overwhelmed. We got to get to the core meaning underneath. And in the next step, we are going to strengthen the relationship by nurturing skills that we're learning and practicing conflict competence and having weekly relationship meetings and having positive connection rituals. So we're going to develop skills and strengthen them. These are the skills for connecting with each other emotionally and physically. And in the last step, we're going to empower or create like a relapse prevention plan for you as a couple. Empower you by showing you that when you practice these things consistently, you have a set plan for how to navigate any challenge that you're experiencing as a couple. Again, sex and couples therapy shouldn't be seen as your last resort. It isn't only for relationships in crisis. And it's certainly not reserved for couples on the brink of divorce or navigating infidelity or just struggling with sex. Sex and couples therapy is for partners who want to be more intentional about how they love each other. Couples who want to learn the skills and mindsets that help them feel emotionally and sexually connected, and to feel deeply seen, genuinely heard, and truly chosen by their partner in their relationship. Is about building something resilient and meaningful and not just fixing what's broken. Because the strongest and healthiest couples aren't the ones who avoid struggle, but the ones who learn how to stay connected through it. Thanks for listening to the Rise to Intimacy podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, know that healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a rating and review for us at ratethispodcast.com/rise. It really helps others find us, and I'm so grateful for all your support. You can learn more about my coaching packages for individuals and couples at risetointimacy.com. And remember, sex therapy isn't for people who are broken. It's for people brave enough to look beneath the surface.